The next way is to learn how to look people in the face and disappoint them. Hard leadership ability. Because leaders, by our very nature, we're yes people. I can do it, no problem, can do, job done, you know. And to look at somebody and say, not the right time, doesn't work for me. You know what I found this is the hardest for? Is for people that are your directs. When I'm working with an organization, I'll go to the directs and say, how are they doing? And they'll say, well, they say yes, but they mean no. It's very hard to let down your directs. I was working with a guy, and he had a 360 done on himself. Anybody ever had a 360 done on yourself? Boy, you might as well do your own dental work. My goodness. Because it's anonymous, and they tell you the truth and all that horrible stuff. But he was a great guy. He had 7 directs. He was an executive in a firm that was doing very well. He had 7 directs. Busy guy. And he was the guy that loved his people. He would take a bullet for his people. I mean, the real kind of leader you want to be. He knew the names of the spouse, and they knew their kids' names, and when they were sick, went to the hospital. I mean, the real deal. Authentically caring. So he gets his 360 results. He comes to him, and he's devastated because he's got low scores. And I said, that's a head scratcher. I mean, you're just such a great guy. You love your people. Why you got low scores? He says, I don't know. I said, well, this is R&D time. Go back to your people, sit down, have a meeting, and say, I want to learn from this. It's okay. Comes back about 3 weeks later, and he goes, I get it. And I said, okay, what's up? He said, they told me, you won't believe this. They said, we don't trust you. We don't trust you. And he went, what are you talking about? I know your spouse's names. I've been to your homes. I'm there for you when you're in hospital. What do you mean you don't trust? They went, wait a minute. We trust the loving yes side of you because you're there. But when there's bad news and we're not performing right or you're not happy with us, where are you? You're out there and you don't say anything and you pull away and you're kind of upset. And we hear it from other people. We call it, in psychology, we call it the triangle. There's a triangle there. And you went and told person B, and then person B tells person C, but we never hear from you because you don't like to deliver bad news. He didn't like to deliver his no muscle. And I said to him, is that true? And he goes, unfortunately, that's true. I'm a great yes guy. I inspire the troops. I get them jacked up. But to tell them bad news, like I can't do this, or we've got a performance issue, or you've got a performance issue, he says, that's hard for me. And I said, well, that's a leadership issue. Long story short, the reason we dug down and deeper into his life, the reason that he was good with good news and not very good with bad news, he grew up in a family with an alcoholic, violent father. And if you understand the importance of your childhood in leadership, the research is all over the map that you'd better pay attention to your childhood if you want to be a high performer because it matters. It matters. Jesus said in Matthew 7, look at the tree, look at the fruit. And there's a tree there underneath that fruit, guys, and if you don't pay attention to that, it's an issue. And that alcoholic, violent father, every time this executive as a little boy would try to say no, give bad news, set a boundary, say, I disagree, I don't like that, his dad would just be tough sledding. Tough sledding. So what he learned was what we call, he learned to have indirect communication. So when he wanted something, instead of going to somebody and saying, hey, I got to speak the truth in love here. We got a money problem, we got an attitude problem, we got a performance problem. He did end runs. He learned how to be indirect and kind of manipulative. And sort of like keep everybody happy and do other stuff. Did a lot of sort of backwards communication. And I said, you're never going to be the leader that you need to be unless you do the principle of speaking the truth in love. So he had to do a lot of work. Had to face his demons. Had to deal with that abusive father in his head. And it worked. And he came out and became a loving, honest guy who deeply cared for his troops, but he could do a straight eyeball-to-eyeball confrontive conversation. Guess what happened 6 months later in his 360s. Scores went up. Because he developed the ability to look people eye to eye and give them tough information. What you find out is you trust somebody that tells you the truth. You trust somebody that tells you the truth. The next principle is take a look at your own fuel. When I work with organizations, and especially with the leadership, I say, where do you get your fuel? Your energy, because you got to have energy to work. And energy comes from several sources. We're supposed to, in a Christian setting, we're supposed to get our energy first from God. God fuels us and directs us and guides us and leads us. So God's a source of power and energy. We're supposed to get it from our vision and, our work. Work's supposed to give you energy. I mean, it's tiring, but it gives you energy. You get excited when you get home and say, accomplished a lot, slayed some dragons, moved the ball forward. You get energy from your work. You get it from God. You get it from your work. You get energy from sort of the relaxing parts of life. Maybe you're a biker, or maybe you're art or music or sunset walks or horseback riding or whatever. You get energy from fun stuff like that. You get energy from service. All of us should be in service, helping people who can't help themselves, whether it's a mission in Kenya or whether it's kids on the street in L.A. or, you're mentoring somebody, but we get energy from service. But the one that leaders don't get energy from is other people. Other people. And they don't have the boundaries and the energy to set boundaries because of that. Let me explain that. Leaders are the most isolated people in the world. And I know that sounds strange because you're surrounded with people, but they're the most isolated people in the world. And here's why. Because leaders, when they're around people, are sourcing others, directing and guiding and managing and supporting and developing and strategizing and structuring and all that great stuff you're supposed to do with people you're trying to envision and prepare, right? You're sourcing. Is sourcing input or output? Sourcing is output. It's necessary. It's good. It's what leadership's about, but it's output. And my experience with leaders is that like a magnet, you guys gravitate toward the output sourcing relationships and do not have the input relationships. Where somebody else in a high capacity level is inputting you. Because leaders are more comfortable in the giving position, the sourcing position. You feel valuable, you care, and leaders are horrible at saying, hey, I need to vent. I need 15 minutes. I've had a hard day. Leaders are great givers and really crummy askers for various reasons. Except my Bible says, in James chapter 4, we do not have, because why? We do not ask. We're crummy askers, and we need to repent of being crummy askers.